Thank you for staying with Citizen TV. Now let's start that discussion. We want to find out what their thoughts are on issues happening on the dailies and then get into the elephant in the room. How best can the deputy governors and the governors work together? So today, it's a turn for the deputy governors with us here in studio. Next week, we'll probably get the governors as well to find out what their thoughts are on how they work with their deputies and the best way to deal with that. But mostly we'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija to Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag DAYBREAK. My guest already in studio, His Excellency Francis Mwangangi is here, Deputy Governor for Machakos. Asante sana for making time. His Excellency Engineer Frederick Kirui, Deputy Governor for Kericho, is also here with us. Asante sana for making time. And His Excellency Dr. William Oduol, Deputy Governor for Siaya, is also with us here in studio. Asante sana for making time. Let's take a look at the daily's front page of the Daily Nation, hidden tax pain in Ruto's budget. But before we get into the nitty-gritties, I'd like to hear from you, Oduol, and I'll start with you on this. Finance bill. What are your thoughts on this finance bill? Are they prudent taxes there, or is it too much for Kenyans to bear?
So, good morning, Kenyans, and thanks for affording us the opportunity. Trevor, I want to submit that the finance bill, as is presented to the public, is burdening, very burdening to the Kenyans. If that bill passes in its current state, then this country is going to be one of the most, Kenyans are going to be one of the most taxed people in the world. The bill proposes a whole raft of taxes across the various segments of the business, and that is not going to be good for business. Yeah. If you look, for example, what the dailies are saying, if it is implemented in its current state, we are going to lose close to 150 billion worth of investment
yeah,
in this country. You look at the proposed 16% fuel levy from 8%. That has a ripple effect across the various segments of the business. So long and short, I think there's need for review, especially professionals have, prosecuted themselves on this particular matter. Accountants body talked about it yesterday during the annual conference, and even a good number of professionals, including even Kenya Association of Manufacturers, have made some significant contributions. Okay. And I think there's need for government to have a relook. They need to introspect with a view to taking into consideration the recommendations, okay, and the discussions that are going on, okay, across the country.
All right. Yeah. Kirui, what are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Kenyans. I think on the taxation issue, the current debate that is going on in our country, we need to give it a deeper thought in terms of when you look at the other East African countries, our VAT is at 18%, whereas in Kenya, our VAT currently is at 16%. And what the president is actually trying to do is, he has informed us severally that we need to build on our savings, and also to look at the housing project that will create so many employment opportunities. I remember myself when I graduated from the university way back in 2000, the first landing job that I was able to go to in Nairobi was a construction industry. And the basic thing that the president is talking about is, let us get this 3% housing levy. Then from there, we actually get a way of owning the houses, because once we build so many houses, we currently pay a lot of money in terms of rent. You find somebody in Nairobi paying around 15,000, paying so much money. So what is basically saying, the 15,000 that you are paying in terms of your rent, why can't you pay it so that you become a house owner? So many people are creating so many. I was looking at, when I was going through my social media page, people are calculating that you will pay the house for 137 years. So you probably own a house up. You know, there are so many things that are coming up. People are not being given the correct information. And that is why the president has been at pains to explain why it is very important that we look at it deeply in terms of creating employment. Our youths currently, we know Kenya has a problem in terms of what our people going to do. And as an engineer, I know the construction industry is one of the industries that creates employment very fast, because you go there in the morning and you are able to push your wheelbarrow, you carry your material here and there. By evening, you are going home with 500 shillings. That 500 shillings will be able to cater for you at least a kilo of sugar. You'll be able to buy unga and so many other things. So what we need to do is to look at how are we going to create employment. And what he's basically saying, let us at least have the 3% tax, which goes directly to the housing levy. And then that housing levy creates so many other opportunities for other people.
Yeah.
Then eventually also you own a house.
But people are simply saying that they can't afford it.
Okay, you know, they should look at it in a bigger picture. Because the affordability is, we need also to create employment. So if we say that we cannot afford, how about these other people who do not have employment? Because we are looking at the people who do not have anything. Another government is saying the 3%, yes, we know might not be even enough to construct the houses. But what you are saying is, get the 3%, get the employer giving you another 3%, build that into a kitty, use it to construct the houses. The houses, first of all, will create employment. Then from the employment, people who are currently, look at the informal settlements that we have. So many Kenyans are living in very pathetic housing conditions. But what you are saying is, put one unit, have everybody there. Even bringing services to those people will be easier, because you'll bring water, you will have electricity at one centralized point, instead of the scattered nature that we are currently in.
Okay.
If you go to China, you have one unit housing so many people. And that is actually what you are driving at. The president has also looked at, in future, the current situation that we are in as a country. You know, you have so many scattered houses all over.
Yeah.
To take a pipeline, let's say for water from point A to point B, just only for one person, or take electricity for just an individual, is something that will cost Kenyans even more money. But when you have one unit, you bring everything, all the services next to those people. And that is actually what we need to look at also, the end game of this conversation.
Okay. Mungagi?
Thank you, Trevor. I think, and thank you for the invite. I think the issue of housing is a critical agenda. However, what we Kenyans are saying is, let's have a discussion. Like, we can achieve the same agenda, but using different routes. What do I mean? We have monies, billions of shillings lying elsewhere. All that which I urge the government to think of is, instead of asking this levy of 3%, it's not a bad thing. You can even ask up to even 20. But can the Kenyans afford? The question is, the answer is as good as we have had so many voices out there. So I think what I can urge at this particular moment is, Kenyans are already highly taxed people.
Yeah.
So much of taxation has economic consequences, has social consequences. So all these parties, I mean Kenyans, pension funds, and other funds and experts, even the church, even the leaders, they need to have a conversation. My worry is the kind of language I hear from a section of leaders, and they are entitled to their opinion, but not their facts. Kenyans are suffering. So I think we should engage, because we know for sure if we implement this agenda of housing, millions of jobs will be created out of it. But we can use different means other than overtaxing Kenyans. This overtaxation, as somebody has said, is also going to affect this country in a very different ways. That is likely to bring more poverty as opposed to what the target currently is. Because when you see companies threaten to relocate, and by the way,
We were discussing another research the other day in a certain class, and we were agreeing Kenya for the past almost 3 years has been losing to our neighbors, particularly to Ethiopia, a country that we know has had war, internal war. Look at what is happening in Naivasha. So many of these horticulture are relocating. And that is not a very good agenda. It is very good we bring together all parties and we listen, not for the purposes of listening.
Yeah.
It is so bad when you hear somebody say, even if the leadership from government side met and decided they will pass this, people should not just thump. We will pass it without a dot or changing anything. That is not a very good way of running a country.
Yeah.
I think you have power today, and tomorrow you will not have it. Let us be responsible in our utterances, in our behavior, and put our people who wake up in the morning and voted for us to these particular offices. Okay. So I think we should be listening and act on the views of Kenyans, because we might not achieve what we want as Kenyans through that parliamentary process. There is also another way of achieving the same. And Kenyans nowadays have options, so many options.
All right.
Yes.
Odul, is the housing levy an unnecessary levy?
Well, from my personal standpoint, I think the housing levy is not necessarily a bad thing. And the fact that the government is also matching that particular contribution is an additional benefit to would-be contributors. I have fundamental concerns with the housing levy and how it is going to be managed. My concern number one is the infrastructure that the government is going to put in place to ensure that that money that you and I contribute is not lost along the way, is not mismanaged, is not expropriated. That for me is a concern number one, which the drafters and the stakeholders need to address. The other thing is, how is the money, where is this money going to be deposited? And how is it going to be managed? And who is going to manage it? We do not want to have scandals, coming out of this fund, because this is huge money. This is, 3%, 6% on, on Kenyans is going to be a significant deposit, monthly deposit. So how is that going to be managed? Then the other question that I think the stakeholders need to also address is, yes, I will be contributing 3%, which is somewhat compulsory. But am I going to be getting interest from that deposit? Because if I had deposited the 3% in a bank or in a treasury bond, I would be getting interest. So that's, the other fine prints that needs to be clarified. And lastly is how is government or the respective ministry, what criteria are they going to use to allocate houses to potential beneficiaries? For me, if we can address those four fundamentals, then I think we are in for a good investment. But overall, from where I sit, I think it's a good proposition. Okay. It's just the governance aspects of that particular project.
Okay. Do you share the same concerns that there's a bit of mystery around this housing levy? How is it going to be managed? Who's going to be allocated the houses? Why can't it be optional?
Where is the money going to be deposited?
Thank you. I think on my side, as an engineer, we like calculations and maths. When you look at 3%, for every 1,000 shillings, it means you are being asked to pay 30 shillings. For every 1,000, that is 30 shillings. So somebody who is earning 10,000 will pay 300 shillings. And then the employer will pay for you another 300 shillings coming to 600. For somebody who is earning 100,000, you are being asked to pay 3,000. And your employer will pay for you another 3,000. In a way, people who are working should be happy because already the government is proposing for you that there is a 3% increment on your salary because you'll be paid for by your employer another 3%.
Therein lies the problem. Employers, they don't have the money to do it.
What happened is, what the government is trying to pass is out of this amount, of course, it will be at the first custodian of that money will be carry because the money will be taxed. It will be taken to carry. Then from there now, there will be, of course, I'm hoping that there will be a parastatal or something, a body that will be able to manage that funds. For example, we had initially National Housing Corporation. So many of the high-rise buildings in Nairobi, for example, high-rise, where so many people stay, you know, even that is where the first graduates will land in Nairobi, high-rise buildings in Nairobi here. That is the kind of model that actually the government is trying to come up with. So the National Housing Corporation was able to manage. There were so many buildings. You go around Nairobi, National Housing Corporation has done so many houses. And those houses are very cheap. You'll find there are so many services there. And one thing that I want to probably also emphasize, and what my colleague, His Excellency Odwola said, is the issue of corruption. You see, the moment you collect that money, and then it is misappropriated, even to me, the president actually should now be very firm on that the money that will come out from this tax, because it is painful. Kenyans seems that we are all in agreement that this tax is going to be a burden to us, and the pain. So the moment we get that money, then when the houses are being tendered, for example, you have exaggerated prices, you have the people who are doing the tenders have a lot of prices on items that are probably, they doubled, they do what. That is actually an area that needs to be looked at so that we get also these houses at a minimum cost, so that the Kenyans will not be paying for people to go and get an avenue of actually getting the loot.
Okay.
And that, it is not only on the housing levy, even on the other taxes. Even on the other taxes that we are being taxed. What we are saying is that the president needs to crack the whip. Because the moment you collect money from Kenyans, we feel the pain. The reason why we are having so many problems currently is because of misappropriation of our money. You take it here, the prices of so many things are increased, doubled, and that is what everybody is saying. How, you know, Kenyans, the reason why I think they are at pain is because they know that we are already being taxed. And out of this taxation, we are already feeling the burden of our money is being eaten. You go to several projects, the projects have been exaggerated, the prices are high. So we need really to look at how do we manage these funds, not only the housing levy, plus other funds, so that we ensure that it is used prudently.
Okay. Mwangangi, you said that there are many other options of doing this. What is the best way of dealing with the slums? And I know you've seen some of them around. What is the best way of addressing that issue to ensure everybody has proper housing wherever they are?
First is to address the issue of unemployment in this country. Building these houses is one way of also creating job opportunities for younger ones. The only thing, and I'm not sure, I've not heard any Kenyan saying this is a bad idea. What we are saying is the issue of taxation. We can source money from elsewhere, even from budgetary allocation. It is there, and it can be done. About slums, I think sometimes back we had slums upgrading program that was being done by the sponsorship and support from Kenyan government and the World Bank. We can go back to the same program. That is one. Number two, we can also encourage the pension funds in the country to invest in such sectors and ensure fairness to these persons. We need also to bring together governments and our development partners. Those are different ways that we can bring people together and focus on upgrading our slums across the country. There are even other international players like UN Habitat. They can also be roped in. Elsewhere in the world it has been done, and even here is not an exception. It can be done. I don't think what we are saying, Trevor, is every Kenyan, particularly leaders, want the best for our country. But the manner in which we do it also matters, because we want to do it in a way that is not going to hurt Kenyans more, that is not going to increase levels of poverty in this country. So I think upgrading of slums, or rather reducing the same, the first thing, the bottom line. The bottom line is to deal with the issue of unemployment in this country. Okay. Yes.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on the bipartisan talks, but before we get into that, let's close up this conversation on the finance bill. Dr. Dual, if you were before the accounts committee today, the ones that are dealing with the finance bill, what would you advise them? Because they've so far received 1,300 memorandum.
So, I would ask them to go slow, particularly on taxing taxes on basic commodities. Yeah. I would counsel that we review. We'll have a relook on the 16% that they have fixed on fuel, because that has a serious domino effect across the business segment. I am fairly happy, and I think opinion is divided on this one, on the 35% on folks like yourself that are earning in excess of 500,000, north of 500,000. So that, I think, is a way of trying to normalize and bring equality and equity. But the long and short, if you ask me, taxes on a whole raft of taxes that have been proposed on Mboga, borders, and those at the bottom of the pyramid are taxes that I believe we need to have continuous engagement with a view to reviewing those ones.
So reject or adopt or amend?
Amend, review downwards, not reject totally.
Okay. Yeah. Engineer, is this a finance bill for hustlers?
I think, to me, the hustlers are the beneficiaries, because already the hustlers are not employed. The hustlers are working on informal works. And you'll find that they will not even be part of the people who will be taxed. The 3% is actually only targeting people who are working, who are already employed.
But they still get taxed.
But now the people who are going to...
Okay, already, ripple effect on
already the VAT is already there. We are already feeling and we are already paying. What I know, so many people are saying, why don't we borrow this money and then we come and invest on these houses? But you see, when we borrow, we will even pay more. You see, if you borrow 100 shillings or you borrow 1,000 shillings from outside, even World Bank, they will charge you 5%. So it means for every 1,000 that we borrow, you will even pay more. So what we are saying, why don't we do it ourselves so that we save what we are supposed to have paid to another country, so that this money will be within our country. You know, in Kenya, I think we've, what the president is trying to tell us is, let us build ourselves. And the only person who did that, and that is why the economy grew, was the late President Mwai Kibaki. What he did, he increased the taxes slowly, gradually, and we were able to build ourselves. You remember, even during the issue of the education, there was an issue about misappropriation of funds at the Ministry of Education during late Kibaki's, President Kibaki's tenure. And Kibaki himself said, we are financing 97% of our budget, we were financing it on our own. So the moment we finance our budget ourselves, it means the money will be within the country. You see, you are taxing it here, and taking it here, it means it will get back to the economy the following year. What does it mean? But if you borrow, it means there will be an exit route for our money. Like, for example, we borrowed a lot of money on the railway project. And what does it mean? We are paying a lot of money to other countries. So we are building other economies. So what the president is actually trying to explain, and that is where probably so many Kenyans are not looking at, is even if I tax your money today, I take from you, Trevor, it means that money will come to me, then goes back and comes to you back and comes to you later in the same country. And we are like in a cycle whereby money is rotating within ourselves. So it is being taxed here. Tomorrow it will be at the Mjengo. The person will be taking from the Mjengo, will pay the hustler. Yeah. The hustler will go and buy mboga, will go and buy something from the supermarket. Yeah. The same supermarket person will be actually paying for the person who is employed there. So the money will be like rotating. And
your recommendation to the finance committee, pass as is?
Pass as it is. So because this is a tax that we are taxing our own selves, but what I've said is let us take care of that money. Okay. Let us be very prudent and make sure that the money is not lost. Okay.
Mungangi, recommendations to the finance committee?
First and foremost, Trevor, allow me to say this. It is not, I have a different opinion from what His Excellency Engineer Kirui has said. There is no way any country can develop, any organization, anyone can develop so well without borrowing. Even advanced countries today, they borrow. Now, I want to be specific on the finance bill. I think let's listen to what Kenyans are saying. Kenyans already, even before this finance bill was brought, were claiming to be highly taxed. Number three, I do not think even we as Kenyans, we can claim to be wanting to develop our country without being taxed. But what we are saying is let's be moderate. Bearing in mind, the world is recovering from effects of climate change. The world, Kenya included, is recovering from effects of COVID-19. The world is being strained by other world factors that are beyond Kenya. So in this case, I think we should have a conversation as Kenyans to ensure, yes, we are taxed, yes, we need to pay for our tax so that our country can advance, but we need to be reasonable. There is something I want to tell viewers and my countrymen and women, that today we get sick to some complicated sicknesses and we are referred somewhere to a different foreign country. It is good for our fellow Kenyans to know those facilities are built by taxes from the citizens of those countries, by those government. So in Kenya, I think we need to pay our taxes, we need to pay for our obligations, but we need also to be reasonable. We have a conversation such that we don't overstrain ourselves. And by the way, there is something, today as I sit here, we are hearing on a daily basis people committing suicide. And these are people who are employed, people who are teachers, people who are engineers, people because of life challenges. So I think our parliamentarians, and I'm sure they are very good listeners, that's why we were voted. I think they will be in a position to listen and avoid a decision that will strain us more as Kenyans.
Okay. Yeah. I have to take a quick break here on Daybreak. When you come back, now we start addressing the elephant in the room. How are they working with their governors? That is the conversation we'll be having in just a bit. And what is the best way of ensuring that there's work without friction? And do they really have a substantive role in the counties? That coming up in just a bit. We'd like to hear from you, mostly at Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak.